My name is Nate Fisher, and I fix broken things for a living. Air conditioners, heating units, ventilation systems, anything that keeps people comfortable in their little bubbles of denial. 38 years old, hands permanently stained with grease, and married to a woman who thinks I'm as replaceable as a dirty air filter, the irony isn't lost on me that I spend my days fixing other people's climate control, while my own marriage has been stuck on deep freeze for months. It started with the small things. Erica coming home later from her job at TechFlow Solutions, claiming extra hours in HR. Her phone face down on every surface like a guilty secret. New perfume that smelled expensive, too expensive for our budget. The way she'd shower immediately after walking through the door, like she was washing off evidence. "You're paranoid, Nate," she'd say with that practiced smile that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. I'm working hard for us, for our future. Our future, right? I was under the Henderson's AC unit on Maple Street when Todd called. My best friend since high school, ex-cop turned security consultant. Voice growly from too many cigarettes and not enough sleep. "You free for a beer tonight? Got something to tell you about your wife." My wrench slipped, scraping knuckles against the metal housing. What kind of something? The kind that requires alcohol and privacy. That evening at Murphy's Bar, a dive that smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, Todd slid a manila envelope across the scarred wooden table. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance shots of Erica's car parked outside the Marriott downtown. Timestamps showed a pattern every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 weeks. Who? I asked, though part of me already knew. Wes Dalton, her boss, also her ex from college. In case you forgot. I hadn't forgotten. Wes Dalton, 39 years old, 6'2", drove a souped-up Mustang and wore suits that cost more than I made in a month. When Erica got hired at TechFlow, she'd mentioned casually that her new supervisor was someone she'd dated briefly in college. "Ancient history," she'd laughed. "We're practically strangers now." Strangers who apparently met at hotels twice a week. "How long have you streaming through our kitchen window?" The same light that now seemed to highlight every lie she'd told. "Working late again tonight?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Probably. Big project deadline coming up. Wes has us all pulling extra hours." There it was, his name dropping from her lips like honey laced with poison. Must be nice having a boss who cares so much about his employees. She glanced at me sharply, but I was already turning away, grabbing my toolbox and keys. Just another day fixing other people's broken systems while mine rotted from the inside. That weekend, Erica's friend Jade threw a backyard barbecue. I stood by the grill, flipping burgers and listening to the wives gossip over wine spritzers. Jade, 33 and surgically enhanced, was holding court with her usual crowd of suburban queens. "Marriage is like a business," she was saying, gesturing with her glass. "You have to keep your husband interested, but you also need to maintain your market value." A little competition never hurt anyone. "What do you mean?" asked Karen from down the street. Jade leaned in conspiratorially. "I mean, sometimes a woman needs to explore her options, keep her skills sharp. As long as you're discreet and use protection, what's the harm? Men do it all the time." The other women giggled nervously. I flipped a burger with more force than necessary, the sizzle matching the heat building in my chest. "Of course, some women are better at it than others," Jade continued. "Take Erica, for instance. She's always been good at getting what she wants from men. Remember in college she had that whole thing with Wes Dalton, then dropped him for that pre-med student, then Jade." Erica's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. She'd appeared beside the group, her smile tight. "Maybe we should talk about something else." "Oh, come on. We're all friends here. I'm just saying, you've always been smart about managing your relationships." I watched my wife's face carefully. The practiced smile never wavered, but something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? Or just annoyance at Jade's big mouth? That night, after the guest had gone home, She checked her phone constantly, always angling the screen away from me. How she'd started going to the gym 3 times a week, a sudden fitness kick that coincided perfectly with her extra work hours. The new lingerie I glimpsed in the laundry basket, tags still attached. I began documenting everything: times, dates, patterns. The methodical approach that made me good at my job was serving me well in my marriage's autopsy. Tuesday night, she came home at 9:30 p.m., claiming she'd grabbed dinner with the team after their late meeting. Her lipstick was gone, her hair slightly mussed despite the bobby pins that should have held it in place. She smelled like hotel soap and another man's cologne. "How was dinner?" I asked from the couch, not looking up from the TV. "Fine, just work stuff. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I'd never cheated on my wife, but I was learning fast. Thursday followed the same pattern. Friday, she announced she was going out with Jade and the girls. "We need some girl time," she said, applying fresh makeup in the bathroom mirror. "Don't wait up." She came home at 2 a.m., stumbling slightly, reeking of alcohol and bad decisions. I pretended to be asleep as she showered again, washing away the evidence of her night. Saturday morning, she was unusually affectionate, making my favorite breakfast and suggesting we spend the day together. Guilt intimacy was apparently on the menu, but I wasn't hungry. "Rain check," I said. "Todd wants help with his deck." The relief in her eyes was microscopic, but unmistakable. That afternoon, I sat on Todd's half-built deck, drinking beer and watching him measure boards with the precision of a former cop. "You're going to confront her," he said. It wasn't a question. "Eventually, what's the plan?" I took a long pull from my beer, tasting the bitterness. You know what I learned in 20 years of HVAC work? Sometimes a system looks fine on the surface, but the rot goes deep. You can't just patch the visible damage. You have to expose everything. See how far the corruption spreads. Todd paused in his measuring. That sounds ominous. Does it? I was just like leaky ducks. Eventually, they all get exposed. She stood there in our living room, still in her work clothes that were now wrinkled in all the wrong places, and I watched her calculate her next move. Deny everything, admit to drinks, but nothing more, go on the offensive. She chose option 3. "You know what, Nate? Yes, I had drinks with Wes. Yes, we talked about more than work. And yes, maybe I've been spending time with someone who actually appreciates me, who doesn't treat me like a piece of furniture that came with the house." The admission hit like a punch to the solar plexus, but I kept my voice level. "How long does it matter?" "It matters to me." She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off our walls. 2 months. And before you ask, yes, we've slept together. But I used protection, so it doesn't really count. It's not like I was trying to get pregnant or leave you. It was just fun. The casual cruelty of it, the dismissive wave of her hand, the way she minimized 20 years of marriage to just fun, should have sent me into a rage. Instead, I felt that cold calculation settle deeper into my bones. "I see," I said. She blinked, clearly expecting more of a reaction. "That's it. That's all you have to say." "What would you like me to say, Erica?" "I don't know. Something. Anything. Fight for me. Get angry. Demand I choose. Show me you actually care." I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, built a life with, trusted completely. The woman who just told me she'd been sleeping with her ex-boyfriend for 2 months, but it didn't count because she'd used protection. "I care," I said quietly. "More than you'll ever know." Something in my tone made her step back. "Nate, I'm going to bed. Lock the door when you come up." I left her standing in the living room, and for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The waiting was over. Now the real work could begin. The next morning, I woke up with the clarity that comes after a storm passes. Erica was already gone. early meeting, according to the note on someone for 8 years, is that you know their routines, their blind spots, their assumptions. Erica assumed I was predictable, passive, the kind of man who'd sulk and drink beer and eventually forgive her because it was easier than starting over. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. That evening, she came home at a reasonable hour, bearing takeout from my favorite Thai place like a peace offering. "I thought we could talk," she said, setting the containers on the kitchen table. "About last night." "About us?" "Sure," I said, getting plates from the cabinet. "What did you want to talk about?" She seemed surprised by my calm tone. "Well, I know what I said was harsh. Maybe I could have been more diplomatic." "You mean about sleeping with your boss for 2 months?" She flinched. "Don't be crude. Sorry. Making love to your boss for 2 months, Nate. Coincate, considering this distinction." "I see. So you're not in love with him?" "No, of course not. I love you. But you enjoy having intimacy with him more than with me." Her silence was answer enough. "Well," I said, taking a bite of noodles, "at least you're using protection." Over the following weeks, I became a student of my wife's deception. She had patterns, tells, rituals. Tuesday and Thursday, late meetings were always followed by long showers and immediate laundry. She'd check her phone obsessively on Monday and Wednesday, presumably making arrangements. Friday night, girls' nights had become more frequent, though Jade had mentioned to me at the grocery store that she hadn't seen Erica in weeks. I installed a small GPS tracker on her car, a device I'd originally bought to keep track of my work van after it was stolen last year. $29 on Amazon. Magnetic attachment, real-time location updates to my phone. Completely legal to track my own wife's vehicle. The data was illuminating. Tuesday and Thursday trips to the Marriott downtown, always between 6 and 1,000 p.m. Friday night visits to West Dalton's house in the upscale Riverside neighborhood. Weekend shopping trips that included stops at Victoria's Secret and expensive restaurants I'd never been to. She was living a double life, and I was funding it, wiping grease from my hands. "I'm not planning anything illegal. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer you're getting." He was quiet for a moment, watching me pack my tools with the methodical precision that had become my trademark. "You know I've got your back, right? Whatever you need." "I know, but I also know you. You're not the forgive and forget type. When someone crosses you, you don't get mad. You get thorough." I looked at my oldest friend, the man who'd stood beside me at my wedding, who'd helped me move into this house, who'd been there for every major moment of my adult life. She told me it doesn't count because she used protection. I said like there's some kind of adultery loophole I wasn't aware of. Todd's face darkened. "Jesus. You want to know what I'm planning?" "I'm planning to give her exactly what she asked for. A consequence-free affair. No strings attached. Just fun." "What does that mean?" I shouldered my toolbox and headed for my van. "It means I'm about to become very good at fixing problems." That Friday night, Erica announced another girls' night out. She spent an hour getting ready, choosing a dress that showed off her figure, applying makeup with the care of a woman preparing for a date. "Don't wait up," she said, kissing my cheek. The gesture felt like a slap. "Have fun," I replied. I waited 30 minutes, then followed the GPS signal to West Dalton's house. Riverside was the kind of neighborhood where people like me only went to fix things. Massive houses set back from the street, perfectly manicured lawns, 3-car garages for people who collected vehicles like trophies. Wes's house was a colonial revival, with more square footage than most apartment buildings. His Mustang was parked in the circular driveway next to Erica's Honda Civic. The contrast was almost comical, his expensive muscle car dwarfing her practical sedan like a lion next to a house cat. I parked down the street and walked back, keeping to the shadows. The house had large windows, and Wes apparently wasn't concerned about privacy. I could see into the living room where my wife was curled up on a leather couch, that probably cost more than my annual salary. They were 06. They were drinking wine, laughing at something on his massive TV. Erica looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. Happy, this neighborhood. I poured the entire bag of sugar into the tank, then replaced the cap. The sugar wouldn't dissolve in gasoline, but it would create a syrupy mess that would clog fuel lines and destroy the engine. A $20 fix for a $20,000 problem. Then I moved to Erica's car and let the air out of all 4 tires. Not slashed, just deflated. An inconvenience, not vandalism. Finally, I used a small screwdriver to disable the garage door opener receiver, a trick I'd learned from years of working on electrical systems. Wes would be able to open the door manually from inside, but the remote wouldn't work. I was home by 4 a.m., asleep in my own bed, when Erica crept in an hour later. Saturday morning, my phone rang at 8 a.m. Erica panicked.
"Nate, I need you to pick me up. My car has 4 flat tires, and Wes's car won't start."
"Something's wrong with his garage door, too. Can you come get me?" I let her hear the smile in my voice. "Of course, honey. Where are you?" I stayed at Jade's last night. Her address is..." "I'll find it. Give me an hour." I took my time getting dressed, eating breakfast, reading the newspaper. Then I drove to West Dalton's house, where my wife was waiting on the front steps like a guilty teenager. She got into my van without meeting my eyes. "Rough night?" I asked. "Jade's having some relationship problems. I didn't want to leave her alone." "That's very thoughtful of you." We drove in silence for several minutes before she spoke again. "It's weird about the cars. What are the odds that both of them would have problems on the same night?" "Pretty slim," I agreed. "Almost like someone wanted to strand you there." She looked at me sharply, but my expression was innocent. Just a helpful husband picking up his wife after her night of charity work. "You don't think I mean, who would do something like that?" "I have no idea, but whoever it was knows cars pretty well, and they were probably watching the house to know which vehicles to target." The color drained from her face. "Watching the house. Just a theory. Could have been random vandalism, too. But what evidence?" Finally, she looked up at me with something like fear in her eyes. "Nate, if someone was watching me, if someone knew about..." "About what?" "About my friendship with Wes." I sat down my coffee cup and gave her my full attention. "Are you asking if I had anything to do with what happened Friday night?" "Did you, Erica? I was here all night. You can check the security system if you want. I armed it at 10 p.m. and didn't disarm it until you came home." "All true. The security system showed I was home. It just didn't show when I left through the basement window that wasn't connected to the alarm. But if someone was watching, if they knew about us, then maybe you should be more careful about where you park your car." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to read my expression, looking for cracks in my facade. But I'd had weeks to practice this face, the concerned husband, the innocent victim. "Maybe," she said finally, "I should cool things down with Wes for a while." "That's probably wise. Wouldn't want to give people the wrong impression." "Right. The wrong impression." But even as she said it, I could see her phone buzzing with text messages, and I could see her fingers itching to respond. The sugar in Wes's gas tank would take a few days to do its work. The real damage would come when he tried to start the car Monday morning, when the syrupy mess hit the fuel injection system and turned his engine into an expensive paperweight. I had time to prepare the next phase. That night, after Erica went to bed, I sat in my workshop and planned. I had notebooks full of information now. Patterns, schedules, weaknesses. Erica thought she was being careful, but she was predictable. They both were. She'd try to contact Wes Monday, probably arranged to meet somewhere more discreet. They'd be paranoid about being watched, which would make them sloppy in other ways. And I'd be ready. Monday morning brought the sound of Erica's phone buzzing like an angry wasp. She was in the shower, so I glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls from Wes. 2 text messages I couldn't read without her passcode. When she emerged, hair wrapped in a towel, she grabbed, "Borrow my car." Of course, that's what friends do. The word friends hung in the air between us like a challenge. That evening, Erica announced she was taking Wes's car shopping after work. "He needs something reliable while his Mustang is in the shop. I know cars better than he does." This was news to me. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never seen her demonstrate any automotive knowledge beyond knowing where to put gas. "That's very helpful of you. I'll probably be late. Car shopping takes time." "I'm sure it does." She left at 7 a.m., earlier than usual, and according to my GPS tracker, went straight to Wes's house instead of the office. They spent an hour there before driving to TechFlow together in her car. I used the time to make some calls. "Todd, I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" "The legal kind. If someone wanted to protect their assets in a divorce, hypothetically, what would be the first steps?" There was a long pause. "Hypothetically, completely hypothetical." "Well, hypothetically, they'd want to document everything. Bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts. They'd want to establish separate accounts, maybe move some money around, all legal, all documented, all done before filing any papers. And if they had a friend who was a retired cop, someone who understood evidence and documentation, hypothetically, that friend might be very helpful in making sure everything was done by the book." "Thanks, Todd." "Nate, this hypothetical person, they're not planning anything stupid, are they?" "Define." "Anything that involves me visiting them in jail." "No jail time, I promise." That afternoon, I opened a new checking account at a different bank. Then I transferred half our savings, my legal half, according to Ohio's equitable distribution laws. I documented everything, kept every receipt, every transaction record. Erica came home at 10 p.m., flushed and excited. "We found the perfect car," she announced. "A BMW 3 Series, barely used. Wes is getting such a good deal." "That's great. How's he paying for it?" "Well, that's the thing. His credit is tied up. Conviction." "Erica, I'm not stupid. I know about the hotels, the Friday nights at his house, the lingerie, the new perfume. I know about all of it." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "The question is," I continued, "what are we going to do about it?" I don't know what you want me to say." "I want you to say you'll call the dealership tomorrow and cancel that loan application." "I can't do that. Wes is counting on me." "And I'm your husband. You're also being unreasonable." I stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up the bank statement that had arrived that morning, the one showing our savings account balance. "You want to know what's unreasonable? This." I handed her the statement. She looked at it, confused. "What am I looking at?" "Our savings account. Notice anything different?" Her eyes widened as she saw the balance. "Where's the money?" "Safe in an account that doesn't have your name on it." "You can't do that. That's our money." "Actually, it's my money earned during our marriage, which makes it marital property, which means I'm entitled to half. I took exactly half. You're being vindictive." "I'm being practical. You just committed us to a $40,000 loan without consulting me. Clearly, I need to protect our remaining assets." She sank into a chair, the bank statement trembling in her hands. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to choose." "Choose what?" "Him or me. The affair or the marriage. You can't have both." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the bank statement like it might change if she looked hard enough. "And if I choose you, then you ended with Wes completely. No more meetings, no more hotels, no more car loans. You transfer to a different department or find a new job. We go to counseling. We try to rebuild. And if I choose him, then we get divorced. You can co-sign all the loans you want with your own money. She looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw the real Erica. Not the manipulative woman who'd been lying to me. Not the guilt-mourning researching divorce lawyers. Todd called at lunch. Heard from a buddy at the dealership. Someone tried to co-sign a BMW loan yesterday, but the application got flagged for unusual activity. What kind of unusual activity? The kind that happens when one of the applicants suddenly has no verifiable income or assets. I smiled. Imagine that. You know, most people would just hire a private investigator and file for divorce. Most people aren't married to Erica. What makes her so special? She thinks she's smarter than everyone else. Always has. She thinks she can manipulate her way out of any situation, charm her way past any consequence. It's time someone taught her otherwise. And that someone is you. That someone is reality. I'm just helping it along. That evening, Erica came home looking defeated. The BMW deal had fallen through, something about financing issues. Wes was back to driving a rental car and apparently not happy about it. Bad day? I asked. The worst. Want to talk about it? She looked at me suspiciously. Since when do you want to hear about my problems? Since always. I'm your husband, remember? Are you? Because it feels like you're my adversary. I'm whatever you make me, Erica. She poured herself a large glass of wine and sat across from me at the kitchen table. Wes thinks you're sabotaging us. Us? Him? He thinks you're sabotaging him. Via. How would I do that? I don't even know the man. The car vandalism, the loan problems. He thinks it's too much of a coincidence. Sometime. She studied my face looking for tells. I think my husband is a lot more devious than I gave him credit for. Is that a compliment? I'm not sure. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 years of marriage pressing down on us like a collapsed ceiling. I talked to a lawyer today, she said finally. So did I. What did they tell you? That adultery doesn't affect property division in Ohio, but it can impact spousal support, especially if the cheating spouse spent marital assets on the affair. Her wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. What's that truth? Friday, I said. You have until Friday. But I could already see the decision in her eyes. Wednesday morning brought a text message that changed everything. Can't do this anymore. Choose him. Want the divorce? I stared at the message over my coffee, feeling something that might have been disappointment. Part of me had hoped she'd fight for us, that she'd realize what she was throwing away. The bigger part of me was relieved. Now the gloves could come off. I forwarded the message to Todd with a note. It's time. He called back within minutes. You sure about this? She made her choice. What do you need? Everything we discussed, and I need it fast. Give me 2 hours. I called in sick to work again and drove to Todd's house. He had everything ready. Divorce papers from his lawyer friend, documentation of all my financial moves, and a manila folder thick with surveillance photos. This is everything? I asked, flipping through the evidence. 3 months of adultery documented and dated. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges on credit cards, GPS locations, photographs, all legally obtained. And the other thing? He handed me a second folder. Employment records for TechFlow Solutions, their HR policies regarding workplace relationships, harassment guidelines, ethics violations. Your wife and her boss have been violating about 6 different company policies. Who's their biggest client? MedTech Industries, 70% of TechFlow's revenue. Very conservative company, very concerned about their public image. I smiled. Perfect. Nate, you sure you want to go nuclear? There's no coming back from this. She's the one who lit the fuse. I'm just making sure the explosion is big enough to be seen from space. That afternoon, I paid a visit to my lawyer. Not the one Todd had recommended, but a different one. A woman named Patricia Holbrook, who specialized in high-conflict divorces and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. I want everything, I told her, sliding the folders across her desk. The house, the cars, alimony, everything. She spent an hour reviewing the documentation, occasionally whistling under her breath. This is very angrier. I was angry. Now I'm just tired. She seemed almost disappointed by my lack of drama. We'll need to discuss the financial arrangements. Already handled. You'll be hearing from my lawyer tomorrow. Your lawyer? Patricia Holbrook. I think you'll like her. She's very thorough. The color drained from Erica's face. Everyone in town knew Patricia Holbrook's reputation. Don't you think we should try mediation first? Keep things friendly. Friendly? I laughed. Erica, you've been sleeping with your boss for 3 months. You tried to co-sign a car loan without telling me, and you just texted me this morning that you're choosing him over our 8-year marriage. What exactly about this situation suggests we should be friendly? I just meant... You meant you want to control the narrative. You want to manage the consequences, minimize the damage to your reputation. But that's not how this works. What do you want from me? Nothing. You've already given me everything I need. Friday morning, Patricia Holbrook's office served Erica with divorce papers at her workplace. According to Todd's contact at TechFlow, she was called into HR immediately afterward. The papers included a detailed accounting of the affair, complete with dates, locations, and financial expenditures. They also included a request for full disclosure of all workplace relationships and potential ethics violations. By noon, West Dalton had been called into HR as well. By 2 p.m., both of them were suspended pending a full investigation. Erica called me, hysterical. You bastard! You got us both fired! I didn't get anyone fired. You violated company policy. I just made sure the company knew about it. This is my career. You should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with your boss in company time. We never, hotel receipts show charges during business hours. Erica, you were billing TechFlow for the time you spent screwing Wes at the Marriott. The line went quiet. That's fraud, I continued. Billing a client for services not rendered. I'm sure their biggest client, MedTech Industries, will be very interested to know how their consulting fees were actually being spent. You're destroying my life. I'm revealing affair as evidence of financial misconduct. Apparently, he's been hiding assets, and the affair gave them grounds to freeze everything. So, he's broke. Broker than broke. His wife gets the house, the boat, half his retirement, plus alimony, plus child support for their 2 kids. And Erica? Well, that's where it gets interesting. Turns out she's not the only woman Wes has been seeing. His secretary came forward with her own story. Apparently, this is a pattern for him. I sat down my beer. How many others? At least 3 that we know of. All employees, all during company time, all potential lawsuits waiting to happen. The scope of it was staggering. Erica hadn't been special, hadn't been chosen. She'd just been convenient. Does she know? She does now. The HR investigation turned up everything. Phone records, hotel receipts, credit card statements. Your wife was just the most recent in a long line of workplace conquests. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt something closer to pity. Erica had blown up her marriage, her career, and her future for a man who saw her as just another notch on his belt. Saturday morning, she showed up at the house looking like she hadn't slept in days. Can we talk? What's left to talk about? I made a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. But we can fix this. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't go through with the divorce. Why? Because you lost your job? Because Wes turned out to be a serial cheater? Because you're about to lose everything? Because I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of not facing the consequences of your choices alone. That's not true, isn't it? Where was this love when you were meeting him at hotels? Where was this love when you were co-signing car loans? Where was this love when you texted me that you were choosing him? She started crying, and for a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. She'd been vulnerable then, too, but it had seemed genuine. I can't do this alone, she whispered. You should have thought of that before you made sure you wouldn't have to. What does that mean? Why he's suddenly unavailable? Her silence was confirmation. He dumped you, I said. The moment you told him about the pregnancy, he was gone. Just like he dumped the secretary and the marketing coordinator and whoever else. That's what serial cheaters do, Erica. They run when things get complicated.
So, what am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to figure it out like an adult, like someone who makes choices and lives with the consequences.
I can't raise a baby alone.
You should have thought of that before you decided to have unprotected intimacy with your boss.
But the condoms had holes in them.
Tiny little holes made with an insulin needle. Amazing what you can learn on YouTube. The realization hit her like a physical blow. You sabotaged the condoms. I gave you exactly what you asked for. A consequence-free affair. No strings attached. Just fun. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the man you chose to betray. I'm the husband you decided to humiliate. I'm the person you thought was too stupid, too passive, too predictable to fight back. I never thought you were stupid. Yes, you did. You thought you could manage me, control the situation, have your cake and eat it too. You thought you were smarter than everyone else. What happens now? Now you get to find out how smart you really are. The next few weeks unfolded like a controlled demolition. Each day brought new revelations, new consequences, new evidence of just how deep the rot had spread. Erica moved in with her mother, a bitter woman who'd never liked me, but liked her daughter's situation even less. According to neighborhood gossip, their reunion was explosive. Mrs. Patterson had spent 8 years telling anyone who'd listen that her daughter had married beneath her station. Now she was faced with the reality that her perfect daughter was unemployed, pregnant, and facing a divorce that would leave her with nothing. Todd kept me updated on the fallout. TechFlow was hemorrhaging clients as word spread about the company's ethical issues was untouchable, protected by his position and charm. Now he was learning what happened when the protection disappeared. What about Erica struggling? Her mother is making her life hell. She can't find work because word has spread about the TechFlow situation, and she's dealing with morning sickness on top of everything else. Any word on the paternity? She's refusing to get tested until the baby's born, claims it's not safe for the pregnancy. It's safe, she just doesn't want to know for sure. Can't blame her. If it's Wes's kid, she's truly screwed. If it's yours, it's not mine. Todd studied my face. How can you be so sure? Because I've been documenting everything for months, including when we had intimacy and when we didn't. The timeline doesn't work. Jesus, Nate, you documented your own intimate life. I documented my marriage, all of it, every lie, every excuse, every night she came home smelling like another man. He shook his head. That's either incredibly smart or incredibly disturbed. It's evidence, and evidence doesn't lie. The following week, Patricia Holbrook called with an update on the divorce proceedings. Your wife's lawyer is pushing for a settlement, she reported. They want to avoid a trial. What kind of settlement? 50-50 split of assets, no alimony, shared custody of any children. I laughed. Counteroffer. I keep the house, the cars, and my retirement accounts. She gets her personal belongings and whatever debt she's accumulated. No alimony, no child support for a kid that isn't mine. That's harsh, even by my standards. She committed adultery, violated her employment contract, and got pregnant by another man. In what universe does she deserve 50% of anything? The universe where Ohio is a no-fault divorce state? Then we go to trial. Let a jury hear about the affair, the fraud, the pregnancy. Let them decide what she deserves. Trials are expensive and unpredictable. I'm not interested in cheap or predictable. I'm interested in justice. Justice or revenge? Is there a difference? That weekend, Erica showed up at the house again. She was showing now past months because I have records of every time we had intimacy in the past year. Dates, times, circumstances. The last time was March 15th. You're due in December, which puts conception around mid-March. But you were already pulling away by then, already making excuses. We had intimacy once that month, and you were on your period 3 days later. She stared at the folder like it might bite her. You kept records of our intimate life. I kept records of our marriage, including the parts that stopped happening. That's sick. What's sick is lying about paternity to try to trap your husband into supporting another man's child. I never said it was yours. You never said it wasn't because I don't know for sure. Yes, you do. Just like you knew Wes was married when you started sleeping with him. Just like you knew he was using you when he refused to leave his wife. Just like you knew he'd run the moment things got complicated. She started crying again, and this time I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her.
Where is he?
She asked.
Wes, where did he go?
Florida, last I heard. But he's not coming back.
How do you know?
Because men like Wes don't take responsibility. They run. They find new jobs, new women, new lives. They leave the consequences for other people to deal with.
So, what am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to grow up. You're 34 years old, pregnant, and alone. Figure it out. I can't do this by myself. You should have thought of that before you decided to blow up your marriage for a man who was never going to choose you. She wiped her eyes, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the old Erica, the manipulative one who thought she could charm her way out of any situation.
What if I told you I made a mistake? What if I said I was sorry and wanted to work things out?
I'd say you're about 6 months too late. People can change. No, they can't. They can pretend to change when they're desperate, but fundamentally people are who they are. You're someone who lies, cheats, and manipulates. That's not going to change years of marriage, reduced to folders full of photographs and bank statements and hotel receipts. Todd found me there at midnight, nursing a beer and staring at the wall. You okay? Define okay. Still breathing, not in jail, haven't murdered anyone? Then I'm okay. He pulled up a chair and opened his own beer. You know, most people would have just hired a private investigator and filed for divorce. Quick, clean, simple. I'm not most people. No, you're not. You're thorough. She said I was sick for keeping records, for documenting everything. Maybe you are, but you're also right about what? About consequences, about choices, about the fact that actions have results, even when people don't want them to. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, two middle-aged men contemplating the wreckage of a marriage and the price of betrayal. What happens now? Todd asked. Now we wait for the paternity test results. We go to trial. We let a jury decide what 8 years of marriage is worth when one spouse spends 3 months of it sleeping with someone else. And after that, I start over. 40 years old, divorced, living alone in a house that used to be a home. Sounds lonely, sounds peaceful. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. The anger had sustained me through months of planning and plotting. The desire for revenge had given me purpose, direction, a reason to get up every morning. What would I have when it was over? The answer came sooner than expected. 3 weeks later, the paternity test results arrived by certified mail. I didn't need to open the envelope to know what it said. Erica's reaction when the blood was drawn had told me everything. She'd cried through the entire procedure, not from pain, but from the knowledge that her last desperate gambit was about to fail. The results confirmed what I already knew. I was not the father. I forwarded the results to Patricia Holbrook and settled back to wait for the final phase of the divorce proceedings. Motel 6 on Route 9, but he checked out this afternoon. Nate, I think he's planning something stupid. Like what? Like breaking into your house, like confronting you. Like trying to find evidence that you sabotaged his life. I didn't sabotage his life. He did that himself. You and I know that. But desperate people don't think clearly, and from what I hear, he's very desperate. I walked through the house checking locks, testing the security system. Everything was secure, but I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way I hadn't experienced since this whole thing began. What do you think he wants? Money, probably. Or evidence he can use to blame someone else for his problems. Maybe he thinks you have something on him, something he can destroy. I don't have anything. Everything I used was public record or legally obtained. He doesn't know that. In his mind, you're the reason his life fell apart. You're the reason he lost his job, his wife, his kids, his future. He's the reason for all of that. Try explaining that to a drunk, desperate man with nothing left to lose. I spent the rest of the night awake, watching the street, waiting for headlights that never came. But I knew Todd was right. Wes would come. Men like him always did eventually. They couldn't accept responsibility for their own failures, couldn't face the fact that their choices had consequences. The next evening, I prepared. I'd learned a lot about home security during my years as an HVAC technician. Alarm systems, motion sensors, camera placement. It was all part of the job when you worked in people's houses. But I'd also learned about the weaknesses in those systems, the blind spots and vulnerabilities that most homeowners never considered. If Wes was coming, I wanted to be ready. I set up my phone to record continuously, positioned to capture the main entry points to the house. I rigged motion sensors to flood lights that would illuminate the entire backyard, and I prepared a few surprises of my own, using the tools and knowledge I'd accumulated over 20 years of repair work. Nothing dangerous. I wasn't interested in hurting anyone, but I wanted to understand that breaking into my house was a mistake he'd regret. He came at 3 a.m. on Thursday. Device I'd built using HVAC components, a compressed air system that would trigger when the door was forced open. Wes jimmied the lock and pushed the door open. The compressed air system activated immediately, spraying him with a mixture of water and industrial-strength marking dye, the kind used to trace leaks in air conditioning systems. He stumbled backward, cursing, his clothes and skin now bright purple. But he didn't run. Instead, he wiped his face and pushed into the house. I was ready for him. The hallway from the back door was rigged with tripwires connected to more compressed air systems. As he stumbled through the darkness, trying to find his way to the main part of the house, he triggered each one in sequence. More dye, more water, more humiliation. By the time he reached the kitchen, he was soaked purple and furious. "Where are you, you bastard?" he shouted. "I know you're here." I activated the intercom system I'd installed, another HVAC trick, using the house's ventilation system to carry my voice throughout the building. "Hello, Wes. Welcome to my home." He spun around, looking for the source of the voice. "Show yourself, coward." "I don't think so. You're trespassing. You're drunk and you're carrying a weapon. I think I'll stay right where I am and let the police handle this." "The police? You called the police?" Motion sensors are connected to the alarm company. They called the police 20 minutes ago. This was a lie, but he didn't know that.
You ruined my life!
He screamed. You ruined your own life. I just documented it.
My job, my wife, my kids.
You took everything. You lost your job because you were committing fraud. You lost your wife because you were cheating. You lost your kids because you chose intimacy over family. I didn't make those choices, Wes. You did. He started moving through the house, looking for me, triggering more traps. A bucket of water balanced over a doorway soaked him again. A tripwire connected to an air horn made him jump and curse. Each humiliation was captured by the cameras, recorded for posterity.
Where's the money?
He demanded.
What money?
The money you stole. Abandoned her the moment things got complicated. I don't think I'm the pathetic one in this scenario. That stopped him. He stood in my living room, dripping purple water onto my carpet, and for the first time seemed to really understand his situation. She's the baby is yours. The paternity test confirmed it. Congratulations. You're going to be a father again with a woman who has no job, no money, and no prospects.
I can't.
I don't have. You don't have anything. No job, no wife, no home, no future. And now you're about to add breaking and entering to your list of problems. As if on cue, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. I had called the police, just not when I'd told him. They're here, I said through the intercom. You have about 30 seconds to decide how you want this to end. You can drop the crowbar and surrender, or you can try to run and make things worse for yourself. He looked around my living room at the broken furniture, the purple stains, the evidence of his rage and desperation. Then he looked at the front door where the police lights were getting brighter. This isn't over, he said.
Yes, it is.
The police found him sitting on my couch, purple and defeated, the crowbar on the floor beside him. They arrested him for breaking and entering, destruction of property, and violation of a restraining order I'd filed that afternoon. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at me standing in my doorway. You destroyed everything, he said.
No, I replied. I just turned on the lights.
The next morning, the security camera footage was all over social media. Someone, probably one of the responding officers, had shared the video of Wes's purple-dyed rampage through my house. It went viral within hours. Cheating boss breaks into victim's home, gets colorful justice. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. People loved seeing a cheater get his comeuppance, loved the ingenuity of the traps, loved the fact that justice had been served with a sense of humor. Erica called me that afternoon, her voice small and defeated.
I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. He came to see me first.
Marriage reduced to this moment, this question, this final connection between two people who had once promised to love each other forever. No, I said. I don't want to know.
Okay, Erica. Yeah. Good luck.
I hung up the phone and deleted her number from my contacts. Then I sat in my living room looking at the purple stains on my carpet and the broken furniture that would need to be replaced, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Do the marriage, the betrayal, the revenge, the consequences, all of it was finished, resolved, complete. West Dalton was in jail, facing multiple charges and a future that included child support payments he couldn't afford for a child he'd never wanted. Erica was alone, pregnant, and facing the reality that her choices had left her with nothing. And I was free. Free of lies, free of betrayal, free of a marriage that had been dead for months before I'd finally buried it. The house felt different now, lighter, like a weight had been lifted, like the air itself was cleaner. I walked to my workshop where I kept my tools and my plans and my evidence of months of careful preparation. I gathered all the folders, all the photographs, all the documentation of my wife's affair and my methodical response to it. Then I carried it all to the backyard and built a fire. As the flames consumed the evidence of my marriage's destruction, I stood in the darkness and watched 8 years of my life turned to ash and smoke. When it was done, when the last photograph had curled and blackened and disappeared, I went inside and poured myself a beer. Tomorrow, I would clean the purple stains from my carpet. I would replace the broken furniture. I would repair the damage to my house and get on with the business of living. But tonight, I would sit in my workshop and savor the taste of justice served cold, methodically and completely. Erica had been right about one thing. I was thorough, and I was done.